Hi guys, this is Christina in Alaska. I'm going to be presenting on PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. There are a lot of pieces to PBIS, and RaceFan 25N8 went over several of those pieces, but even still between the two of us, there is so much out there that we could talk about that we kind of wanted to focus on a couple of what we felt were really important pieces to PBIS. So she did a couple, and I'm going to be talking about champs and classroom expectations. These are some things you can do in your classroom to make your classroom environment more positive, both between yourself and the students and just between students. So I'm going to jump right in there and get started. I am going to be a second-year teacher this year. My husband and I moved up there from Arkansas last year, and he's also a teacher. He teaches high school English. I taught 7th and 8th grade social studies last year, and I will be teaching 5th grade, which includes all subjects plus PE this year. My certification for Arkansas was elementary, P through 4, so I'm really excited to be getting back down to those lower grades, the younger ages, and the curriculum that I enjoy teaching. PBIS was introduced into my district last year. With PBIS, a new curriculum, and a new grading scale, it was a transition year for our school and for our district. And because of that transition year, I didn't really feel too far behind the curve because everybody else was having to learn a whole new system of things as well. So I feel like that made it easier on a first-year teacher to not be the only one having to play catch-up. So while this is only my second year doing PBIS, I feel fairly comfortable, especially with champs and classroom expectations, because that's what we focused on when we were going through training. And so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it. PBIS, to start off with, wants teachers to create a positive environment, wants to take the assumption out of teaching. We need to create a short list of expectations that are posted in the classroom. When we stop assuming, the students will most likely be less confused because they're not trying to guess what we want. We're not trying to assume that they know what we want. And so it takes away that negativity. When we assume that a student knows something but they're clueless, then we're probably going to get agitated. We're going to maybe get angry, and that's where the negativity comes in the classroom. But if a student knows what's expected of them, then we can approach that in a different manner. Either we can give positive consequences for a student following expectations, or we can give negative consequences for not following expectations. So the expectations are short and they are posted in the classroom, big, easy to read, so that the students can know what's expected of them. Teachers can use the posted expectations to either redirect a student that is not following the expectations, or we can use those expectations to praise students for following the expectations. We can, we want it to be specific. Thank you, Johnny, for turning to page 123 and following along with me. I really appreciate it. We want to use that praise to have our students become good role models for the classroom. We don't want to use the praise of one to shame another. We want it to become so that the students want the praise. They don't want to be hurting another student by getting the praise. And so the positive and negative consequences are also posted with the expectations so that students know what to expect when they behave or misbehave. Since we're trying to focus on the positive, we need a scale of consequences. That's what I call it, but it can be positive or negative. But we want a scale of consequences so that the student can feel rewarded. When you do something right, you want that reward. You want to feel either good about it in yourself, that intrinsic reward, or, if you use a token economy system or something like that, the student can have those extrinsic rewards. And then there are also the negative consequences, things that the teacher can do in the classroom to redirect a student's behavior. Champs are expectations for specific activities or areas of the school. Now, these will be slightly different from your classroom expectations. Even if you're doing a specific activity and you're using champs, your classroom expectations will still be in effect unless you state otherwise. But this kind of gives you a more specific idea of what you expect your students to be doing at a certain time in the classroom. And then you can also do champs for the bathroom, the hallway, the cafeteria, library, whatever you and your school want to do. So an acronym CHAMPS stands for conversation, help, activity, movement, participation, and success. And I'm going to go over that in just a second about how that looks when you're teaching it. So we're going to go over to my example classroom expectations. And I'm going to make this full screen. Okay, this is my example of classroom expectations. I did one of these for my classroom this year, and this is basically what it said. But if you go on the PBIS website, they have a way, they tell you to keep your expectations short. And one of the examples they give is be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. So I took those 3 expectations and expanded on them to what I felt were the most important expectations in my classroom. So I said be safe. An example of that would be keep your hands to yourself, stay in your seat. You could add in push your chair in when you stand up. These are examples of ways the students can keep themselves safe and other students safe. Be respectful. Wait for your turn to talk. Raise your hand if you have a question. Be responsible. Turn your work in on time. Bring your materials to class. Leave your cell phone at home or in your cubby locker. Now, I know the cell phone one might be a little iffy, if you're in a one-to-one school, but we don't have that capability where I'm at, and so the way we deal with it in our school is we just tell people, the students, to leave their cell phones at home or in their lockers. So I took just 3 expectations and expanded on them to give the students examples of how am I safe? How can I be respectful? How can I be responsible? So these you can adapt to your own classroom. Now, I also came up with a list of positive and negative consequences. Please forgive the formatting on this. I just have the Mac version of PowerPoint on my computer, so I think it got a little screwy when I was uploading it. But my positive consequences, and I use the word offense, but you could come up with a different word if you wanted, obviously. But first offense would be praise. That would be in the classroom. Like I said, thank you, Johnny, for turning to page 1, 2, 3 and following along. I appreciate that you are paying attention and that you're following along with us. Second time I see a student doing a certain behavior, and for this example it'll be following along, I'm going to call home or send a note home that afternoon. Third offense, first in line for lunch, then free homework passed, then 15 minutes of computer time. Negative consequences, the first time it would be a redirection. Johnny, I can see that you're not on this page. Can you please turn to page 123? Second offense would be a verbal warning. Third time would be a call or a note home. My fourth offense is specifically for my school, loss of lunch ball. Our kids love playing basketball, and After school detention works for some, but if you take away their lunch ball, they know that you're meaning business at that point. And so that can kind of nip things in the bud. Fifth offense would be an office referral. So these are just examples of how I kept my expectations short, and you could make them even shorter. And then I also had my positive and negative consequences. Moving on to champs. I found an example PowerPoint online that I meant to post with this, so I'll go ahead and post this as soon as my video's done. But this is an edited version of what I found, and this is something that would go along with a lesson plan explaining champs to students. So it goes through the acronym of what champs means. Who can I ask questions? What is my voice level? What is the activity we're working on? Levels of conversation. This is a really interesting thing, and I actually have a poster version of this that you can post in your classroom by your expectations and champs posters. When we were going through the training, we were given examples of the different voice levels that you could use in class. My favorite one is a number 1, a whisper. What she said for a whisper is put 2 fingers on your throat where you can feel the vibrations when you're talking, and count down from 10 until you can't feel the vibrations anymore, but you can still hear a sound coming out. When you can't feel those vibrations anymore, that's when you're at a whisper. So I thought that was really cool. So then, need help, ask a question. What type of activity? This is just all examples of what the champs means. And then this is for each specific activity that you do in your classroom, you would make a champs poster for. So teacher-led instruction, and you see the different ways a student is being a champ. Parent share or teamwork, testing, individual seat work, independent reading, bathroom behavior, and this is where we get to those more specific out-of-classroom examples. Walking in the hall, and then to be a champ, you create success for everyone. Okay, our levels of conversation, it tells you the voice level, and then what it sounds like. So you can edit this as to fit your needs. And then this is how we did our champs posters in my classroom. And what I really liked was we actually did this for the entire 712 upstairs group, is we created the same group of posters that were in every classroom, because, you know, a 7th grader might have a 10th grader teacher for an elective. So no matter what classroom a student was in, they knew the champs' expectations. So this is how we had it set up. Our activity is testing. The conversation level is 0. Help, raise your hand, wait for the teacher to call on you. Movement, stay in your seat. Participation, look at your paper, read directions, use your testing strategies, take your time, raise your hand when you're finished. And you'll see that each of the first letters are in purple, everything else is in black. We did this so that you would have a different color for each different activity. So we had like orange and green and black and stuff. So you could just have a purple card that you put up, and when the student saw a purple card, they'd look over to that poster. So I'm actually running out of time right now. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me an ask or a fan mail or something on my Tumblr. If not, I will see you all at my hangout. Thank you for stopping by.